All right, and welcome to this week's edition of The Jar, a wrestling podcast by Dusty the SaY-DiST. I am your host, of course, Dusty the SaY-DiST, and this week we're going to be going over a list of what I consider to be legends of wrestling. And I feel like I need to explain that a little bit because what I consider to be so I feel like I should elaborate on what I consider to be legends of pro wrestling. It isn't necessarily wrestlers who have built pro wrestling or like made it completely mainstream or anything like that, or like absolute, like older generational wrestlers who deserve their place as legends and the forebears of wrestling. And not to take away from any of those people, by the way, that's a long and illustrious list that every single one of those people that are on that list deserve their spot. They deserve a spot on that list, hands down, no questions asked. But I thought I would at least go over my picks for what I consider to be legends of wrestling. And the first list I'm going to go over is what I consider to be legends from the older generation that kind of helped create certain facets of pro wrestling. And then I have some honorable mentions, and I have to be fair, of course, so I'm not just going to be oriented to male wrestlers or oriented to female wrestlers. I'm going to actually mix it up and do a bit of both. So I want to start by mentioning the legends, like I said, the older generation of wrestlers, and the the five men wrestlers that come to mind are, of course, Antonio Inoki, one of the just absolute legends of Japanese wrestling. I mean, there are several Japanese wrestling legends. A lot of a lot of these people, you can just mention their names to the non-wrestling audience and they will at least understand or know of the person. Inoki did so much for the business, and not just in terms of like what he could do in ring. He ran for political office, I believe, at one point, even held it, I think. I could be wrong about that, but he helped create a promotion, FMW Japan, and helped start a lot of wrestlers' careers and helped train and develop a lot of amazingly athletic and talented individuals that have gone on to reach heights that have honestly not been reached in decades, maybe even generations. Another person I want to mention is somebody that I feel doesn't get the proper respect and flowers that they deserve. And it's a little known man from Texas by the name of Terry Funk, the greatest pro wrestler, in my opinion, in America, like to ever come out of America, rather. Terry Funk and his brother Dory Funk Jr., sons of Dory Funk Sr., they helped revolutionize professional wrestling in the sense of they were American wrestlers who started their careers in Texas and worked their way up through the territories and stuff in America. Then they got invited to work in Japan, and they were such good workers in Japan and captivated the audiences so much that they became one of the most popular gaijin acts in Japan at the time and were so unbelievably over. They were just megastars in Japan, and then came back to America and repeated it. Terry has been you can't mention pro wrestling and not think of Terry Funk. The man has been all over the world, done a multitude of things in almost every wrestling promotion there is. It's just it's baffling to me that he doesn't get as much respect as he deserves. Then I'm going to go a little south of the border here and talk about one of my favorite wrestling styles of pro wrestling, I should say, the Mexican style of lucha libre. It is some, aerial maneuvers and acrobatics and just the speed and style that these wrestlers seem to add to their movements and their fluidity is just awe inspiring. And lucha libre wouldn't be anywhere near what it is today, wouldn't be making cross promotions with Japanese wrestling and European wrestling and American wrestling if it weren't for people like Mil Mascara. Back in the day, Blue Demon, Mil Mascara, several names from the Hispanic, well, not Hispanic, several names from the Mexican area helped popularize and put Lucha Libre on the map and showed people that, hey, you got to come watch this. You got to come see some of the amazing things we can do in the ring. It will literally blow your mind. And the reason I mentioned Mil Mascara and Blue Demon and the wrestling legends of Mexico is because their mark on the professional wrestling industry is undeniable. Some of the best wrestlers currently are Mexican wrestlers. You got Phoenix, or Ray Phoenix rather. You've got Pentagon, or Penta El Zero Miedo, whichever one you want to call him. You've got Ricochet, who came from Mexico, not necessarily Mexican. The Canadian wrestler Vampiro, who spent a lot of his career in Mexico. Just so many names to mention. Rey Mysterio Jr., just the list goes on and on. It's ridiculous. But you know, it's just, there's so many wonderful legends of wrestling that you could mention from basically any country, every country actually. If you sit and think about it, you've got legends from all over the world, and that's just, to me, that's what makes wrestling awesome, is that there's so much diversity and different characteristics that make all come together to make pro wrestling as special as it is. And if you want to talk about like special attractions in wrestling, I mean, hell, no, look no further than the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. I mean, the man could literally dwarf a soda, or in his case, beer can, in his hand. You wouldn't be able to tell if he had anything in his hand or not. It just, his fingers looked a little curved over, like maybe he was about to make a fist. From what I've heard, you know, I've never met Andre the Giant, obviously, but this is a man who, anywhere in the world, from Canada to Mexico, from the UK, all the way down to Spain, every single person knows who Andre the Giant is. No one, you can't mention that name to anyone and they'll just give you a blank expression. Even modern day wrestling fans who know who Andre the Giant is. And that kind of popularity is honestly what brings me to the person I feel deserves to be on this list. And this list, by the way, isn't in any particular order. It's not like number one, number two, and all that. These people are on this list because I feel they all deserve to be on this list, because they've all contributed a great amount to professional wrestling, be it helping to bring the popularity of pro wrestling, be it helping to bring legitimacy and athleticism to professional wrestling, be it to help the younger generation and inspire the younger generations to want to do this and make professional wrestling their career of choice. The last person I would like to mention, though, is, of course, Macho Man Randy Savage. And the reason I mention Macho Man Randy Savage is because you can't name me one pro wrestling fan, maybe not so much nowadays, but you can't name me one pro wrestling fan that has not, at least once in their life, done a Macho Man Randy Savage impersonation. Ooh, yeah, dig it. There's a free one for you. But anyway, you can't tell me that at least one person hasn't done that. It's at least familiar with wrestling. Snap into a Slim Jim, the Slim Jim commercials, the Spider-Man movie he was in. The dude's done it a lot, and he's not just a wrestler. He's also released a rap album. He's, like I said, a movie star. He's done commercials. Macho Man is up there in terms of like getting exposure to not just professional wrestling, but himself and his character, and just being larger than life. And Macho Man, always very larger than life. His when he would come to the ring, his ring entrances, like all the different colors and those jackets and the sequins with the hats and the sunglasses, and just every time he came out on stage, it was literally like you're watching a Broadway play and you see the main star come out on stage. You gasp almost and kind of hold your breath, just like anticipation of seeing Macho Man actually come down the ring when you hear that music start up. You know what I mean? It's just, the Macho Man, as with everybody on this list, they really deserve to be on this list, and they deserve their friggin' flowers. And I just can't reiterate that enough to you guys that in my opinion, these four, I'm sorry, in my opinion, these five people that I have mentioned completely deserve everything that I'm mentioning, but they deserve so much more, even though every one of them have unfortunately passed at this point. But I do want to kind of make some honorable mentions here, and I definitely feel like these people deserve to be named too. And some of these may be a little contentious with the audience in general, because some of these are one or two of these are a little niche. You kind of have to be not a hardcore wrestling fan, but just be really into pro wrestling to kind of get why I made these decisions or made these choices. The first being what I consider to be a complete technical wrestler. This dude, he helps solidify the validity of technical wrestling, and if you watch a technical wrestling match, you can see the story, the great wrestling, and just there's so much to a great technical match that you can just see before your eyes and understand the entire match. You know what I mean? The you can understand the struggles, or the chemistry, or the story of the match, or the overall story of the storyline, or what have you. You know what I mean? And the person, of course, that I'm talking about is the man of thousand holds, Dean Malenko. And the reason I chose him is because anybody who hasn't watched Dean Malenko, like mostly wrestling fans in the modern age, I beg you to go back. There's probably on YouTube. Go back and watch as many WCW matches as you can that feature Dean Malenko and ECW, the original ECW. Dean Malenko is a wrestling machine. He can go like nobody's business, and the dude, he just has the form, the athleticism, everything, has it down pat perfectly. Someone who I feel has really sparked an interest in the high flying aspect of Japanese wrestling, because a lot of wrestling fans know Japanese wrestling as the strong style, where they're a little more stiff, like they actually connect a little more when they hit you and they kind of slam you a little harder. But somebody who's kind of taken the strong style and turned it into more of an aerial style is somebody who I feel needs to be mentioned, and that is, of course, Hayabusa, the great Hayabusa. Well, he's not the great Hayabusa, is not his name, but I call him the great Hayabusa. And Hayabusa is amazing. Him and Shinzei Shizaki, I believe, had a barn burner of a tag team match with RVD and Sabu in, I can't remember which ECW pay-per-view it was, but it was so unbelievably awesome. It was a great match between two excellent teams. Hayabusa, he really helped put aerial wrestling in the wrestlers' view, or not necessarily in the wrestlers' minds and things like that. He helped elevate it to like, maybe this can be a viable style of wrestling to use in front of the audience, because a lot of the moves that he was innovating and doing looked a lot more painful than some of the moves that they were doing that didn't involve high flying and things like that. So I definitely have to mention Hayabusa, and since we're talking like the very fast paced, almost breakneck speed style, I've mentioned him earlier, but I feel like he needs mentioning again. It's Rey Mysterio Jr., or Rey Mysterio now, as the WWE audiences know him as. Him, Psychosis, Super Crazy, Juventud Guerrera. These guys helped innovate what is considered not just lucha libre, but just the athleticism and pure adrenaline fueled rush of what the WWE considered cruiserweight matches. Like the slightly, the not as big wrestlers, not as tall, not as jacked and whatnot. So they're a little more relying on their acrobatics and things like that to topple their opponents and get them in a weakened position for the ending of the match and whatnot. I feel a lot of those guys kind of go unmentioned, and definitely wanted to bring them up to kind of at least give them their flowers and give a nod to them, say, hey, thank you, and before I move on from the high flyers, I would really like to mention somebody that not necessarily a high flyer, but they were just very innovative in the sense of they helped popularize kind of teams, stable, whatever you want to call them in pro wrestling. And I know there were plenty before them, and have been hundreds since, but I honestly feel like the original Four Horsemen and the couple of iterations thereafter, the original Four Horsemen were undeniable. Their popularity in America, especially around like the Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee area, Ric Flair was just Flair country as they call it. He was considered like a god almost in a lot of those places, and I know because I grew up in one of them. But anyway, uh, he just him, and then Arn Anderson, and then you got Tully, and just all these different characters, and just uh, different characters and personalities, and just different people in general. The way they came together, and just it was perfect to see the whole group come together for a common goal and not just try to backstab each other or try to work a storyline where one guy's secretly turning on the other one or feeding information to other people. Stupid stuff. They kept the team as a unit. They were unified and they worked, as a uniform team. And since we're talking about teams, I feel like I have to throw the Freebirds in there as well because, come on now, they innovated trios wrestling as it's known nowadays, but basically a three-man team was pretty innovative back for its time. I mean, it was just three men, and any of the three, any combination of the three could defend the tag belts at any time because they had what was known as now the Freebird rule. So they definitely helped evolve and revolutionize a little bit of tag team wrestling in the very least. And so I feel like that is I feel like that is a good barometer for legends of the past and kind of somewhat more recent, but I definitely feel like we need to go into a more recent not necessarily honorable mentions, just people that helped modernize the wrestling business. And I feel that those people are just that list again is only five people, but I still feel like it bears mentioning. All five of them definitely have earned their place. I mean, I was just talking a minute ago about like technical wrestling and how it's kind of a niche market, but somebody who I think has definitely brought technical wrestling to a more mainstream audience and a wider appeal is someone by the name of Bryan Danielson, because watching any of his matches from the time when he like began his career all the way through WWE and AEW now, he's retired now, but his matches were just undeniably amazing. It was a treat to watch his matches because you never really knew exactly what you were going to get, but you knew, like the finish, but you knew that you were going to get a very good match in a well put together contest, and one that's definitely going to keep you riding the edge of your seat and just biting your nails and just waiting to see, like, oh, is he going to hit him with the Busaiku knee or what, And this one may be a little controversial simply because I personally can't think of a better big man than Andre the Giant, who I mentioned earlier. But kind of a modern day big man that I feel has really not necessarily reached the ceiling, but someone who I feel has helped break open the ceiling for a lot of big men is, of course, the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. And I know a lot of people are going to say Brody King and Big E and even Paul White and all these other large athletes that are just literally bigger than life, like Big Bill or Bill Morrissey or whatever the hell his name is. I can't remember exactly what they call him, but he's a great one. But none of those big guys, in my opinion, would have any kind of momentum to be as character, be as charismatic and as quick on their feet as they have been, as they've come to be known nowadays, Rarely back in the day would you see big men be as fluid and fast and just athletically gifted. But when you think about big men who are athletically gifted, the first name that comes to my mind is Bam Bam Bigelow, for the simple reason that at 300 plus pounds, this man could do a fucking brilliant moonsault. Excuse my language. He could do a moonsault like nobody else. I'm telling you. Bam Bam, perfect big guy. Perfect wrestler, in my opinion, but I mean, he's definitely a perfect big guy. Then you've got people like the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay. Started in, I think he got his start in the UK and then went on to Japan, but he's wrestled in plenty of places. And if you watch any of his modern day matches, you can see how he manages to incorporate a little bit of everything he's learned from other places he's been to kind of cobble it all together into a really really strong move set. It's something that definitely pleases the eye, and it's definitely a treat to watch him as well. I always get excited when I see a Will Ospreay match. To be honest with you, it just really gets me going. Like pumps the gets the blood pumping, gets you excited, in a uh, adrenaline kind of way. Don't take your minds too sexual now. And I like pro wrestling, but I'm not that into pro wrestling. If you catch my drift. We gotta definitely gotta mention who I consider to be a legend of pro wrestling in his current state, and I can't wait to see what he's gonna do by the time he retires. Is the great Kenny Omega. I mean, this dude is just he is above and beyond what a lot of people thought a pro wrestler could be, considering he reminds me a lot of Dusty Rhodes in that he has that charisma and that mic ability, those mic skills, but and that in-ring work, but it's undeniable to look at Kenny Omega and say that's not a great pro wrestler, because if you watch any of his matches, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. He's a good wrestler to watch. He's really fun. Really somebody that I think anybody could kind of get behind, to be honest with you. He's just, even his heel gimmicks or bad guy or whatever, he's still, he's not like over the top and evil and all that. He's a bad guy, you know what I mean? But it's pretty cool. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. And honestly, I know this modern innovators list has gotten a little repetitive, but I definitely feel like Zack Sabre Jr. deserves to be on this list as well, because again, he's another technical wrestler, much like Bryan Danielson, but he's able to mix in a little bit of flair and stuff with it, much like Danielson, to make it appear as more than just chain wrestling and rest holds and stuff like that. He's able to do a little more with it. Kind of give him clay and he makes amazing sculptures with it. And it's just that, in my opinion, is just breaking the very foundations of pro wrestling so that way it can be built up much better and much stronger than it already is. Because the legends like Inoki and Funk and Mascara and Andre and Savage, I think they would be very proud of where pro wrestling is now in the hands of who it's in, with people like Osprey and Danielson and Omega and Zack Sabre Jr. I think if they were to see those wrestlers, they would be pretty proud of the lineage that they've left behind in order to have something like a business for these men that are currently out there to have a legacy to leave behind as well. And I mentioned it at the top of this podcast that I was going to cover men and women, and so that's definitely what I'm going to do. Let's change gears a little bit here and talk about what I consider to be not necessarily the founding mothers of pro wrestling, but definitely women that have innovated and helped pro wrestling reach its peak. And a lot of people may agree with this, a lot of people may disagree with this. These are just my opinions. They're not fact or anything like that. This is just how I feel. Feel free to disagree. I have no problem with that. I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't start out with, yes, this is a little biased, but I have to start with my favorite female pro wrestler of all time, and that is, of course, the lovely, amazing, Canadian princess herself. I don't know if she's an actual princess, but she is in my eyes. Luna Vachon. This woman, she's a second generation wrestler. This woman is just amazing. She does it all, essentially, from like manager to interviewer to pro wrestler to just she. There's literally no role that you couldn't put Luna Vachon in that I don't think she could fulfill. Unfortunately, she has also passed, but I still feel that Luna Vachon is an amazingly innovative person when it comes to pro wrestling, and to deny her would be to deny the greatness that was Luna Vachon. That's just, there's no better way to put it. Luna deserves everything and more from every wrestling fan in the world because she helped bring female wrestling. And no, I have to take that back. Luna didn't just help female wrestling. Luna helped professional wrestling reach its peak because she dedicated her life to and did everything else as much to pro wrestling as any male that was in her era. You know, and again, I'm a little passionate about this, but I love Luna Vachon. She, this may sound weird for some people, but she was my celebrity crush when I was a kid for the longest time. She beat out Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, but that's for another day. Anyway, another woman that I feel really needs to be put, not necessarily on a pedestal, but she needs to be put in a Legends or a Hall of Fame for wrestling in general, especially women's wrestling, because of the way she innovated it and helped it grow to the levels that it has gone to now, is Gail Kim. I mean, Gail Kim has done amazing work. Her TNA run specifically, it yields some of her best matches in my opinion because it showcases her skills when she's working with everybody from ODB to the beautiful people. I mean, she had great matches and they were great opponents and great wrestlers with her. You know, they were great matches for a reason. Both participants in the match were really great. And Gail Kim really helped to put the foundation in of like women can look hot and sexy and attractive, but still get in between those ropes and go just as good, if not better than the men. Because there are several male wrestlers that were on the TNA roster. I would kind of just mute the TV until Gail Kim's matches came on or a different match in general came on because they were just boring. They were lame. I couldn't get into it, and as a wrestling fan, I'm not going to waste time watching something that I can't get any interest in. It's just no point. I definitely feel like as we draw a little closer to the modern age, I mentioned Gail Kim, and that was fairly recent. I also feel like I need to mention two women who definitely contributed just as much to pro wrestling as Gail Kim did. And again, this may be controversial to some people, but I don't really care. I personally believe that Trish Stratus and Lita, also, you know, from the Attitude Era, if I'm not mistaken, just both of those women deserve to be in a Legends category of women's wrestling because look at what they did. Look at how much charisma and just the pops that Lita would get and just the reactions that people love to see Lita do, the Lita Conrana and the moonsault, and just they love to watch her wrestle when she was playing the managerial role for Team Extreme, and then when she got in the ring and was doing matches, she had the crowd eating out of her hands almost in at least a good 90% of her matches I can think of. And Trish Stratus, I mean, the woman has the looks. She's got the just everything, you know, the nice perky bosom, the very tan but not too dark kind of skin complexion, so the way it doesn't look like artificially tan. She kind of looks like a realistic tan. The gorgeous blonde hair. It's kind of like the American sweetheart, so to speak. You know, the blonde haired, blue eyed chick or whatever. I can't remember if she had blue eyes. I'm not that obsessed with Trish, but she helped put women's wrestling on the map as well because some of her matches were just absolutely insane. I remember her and Lita actually had a match, and I think it was Lita that did like a spear through the ropes or something and landed on her neck and kind of jacked her neck up for a while. It was either Lita or Trish, one of the two. I can't remember who, and I apologize to whoever I get this mistaken about, but that match was amazing because the woman who broke her neck actually finished the match. And yeah, you don't see that kind of stuff now. You see people, I think I heard a story recently where a pro wrestler broke his finger in the middle of a match and he wanted to quit. So his opponent, being kind of an old school mentality, just beat the shit out of him, for lack of a better phrase. And I mean, come on now. You can't make wrestlers nowadays like you used to. You know what I mean? And that's not a knock towards any pro wrestler now. It's just saying that wrestlers now are not the same as they were back in the day. That's all it is. It's just an observation. Another person I feel in the women's category of legends is somebody who I think really helped carry the division for the Japanese women of wrestlers, and that is, of course, Gran Hamada's daughter. I can't remember her first name, but I do know in TNA she wrestled as Hamada, so I'm just going to call her Hamada. But she was an absolute firehouse. I mean, just she had great matches with several. I think her and I can't remember who, but she had a great tag team run with somebody, and their matches were pretty unstoppable. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Hamada wrestle because Hamada was awesome. I'm a big fan of the Japanese strong style and the Japanese wrestling in general. You know, the acrobatics and then the athleticism and then the strong style and just the characters and the stories and stuff. So I really, really, really get into that. But so I mentioned that those are the 5 women who I feel deserve to be in a wrestling Hall of Fame. But it's only fair that I at least throw in some honorable mentions because we did on the guys' side. A few honorable mentions who I believe deserve it are Amazing Kong or Awesome Kong, whichever one you want to call her as. She really helped put like the large beast woman, you know, like 6'2", friggin' 200+ pound woman. She helped put that gimmick on the map with being able to be intimidating and a powerhouse and just snarling. And she'd come to the ring and just like that music of like just the pounding on the gate and then the stomping, and it fit her character so perfectly. And just her matches were amazing. I love the implant buster, excuse me. A little excited thinking about Awesome Kong's wrestling matches. She had some great matches, man. It was a treat to watch Awesome Kong because I always felt like if I ever get the chance, I want to sit ringside and watch her just walk to the ring because that is such an intimidating presence, man. It's kind of like the same feeling you get when you see the Undertaker's entrance, you know, with the gong and then the lights, and even especially if he's got the minions there with the hooded robes on and they're all holding the fire sticks and whatnot, or the torches, I guess. But yeah, golly, I'm just amazing. But another honorable mention is, and I know this one's going to be very controversial simply because of all the controversy surrounding the person in general, but I would kind of be remiss if I didn't mention this person while mentioning women's wrestling. You have to at least, maybe not give a nod to, but you have to at least acknowledge the fabulous Moolah, because women wrestlers wouldn't be, women's wrestling wouldn't even be considered a thing if it weren't for people like Moolah and a couple other people around her generation, around her era. I can't think because I wasn't around that generation and don't necessarily know a lot of the names that were very familiar with Moolah and stuff. I'm working with maybe Mae Young because she was on WWF during the Attitude Era, and she famously took that power bomb off the stage by Bubba Ray Dudley. But you know, so you have to mention her for sure because again, she helped not create women's wrestling, but she definitely helped make it a lot more commonplace in a lot of the territories back in the day when wrestling was just starting to get its foothold into culture in general, you know what I mean? And if you're going to talk about women's wrestling, you definitely need to mention, in my opinion, a woman who's kind of battle tested. I mean, it's a death match she's not a deathmatch wrestler, but she has done death matches and she's actually prolific in death matches, but she's not just a deathmatch wrestler. Lufisto. I absolutely love this woman because she's so cute and little and like, you know, kind of shortish and just meek and got this little cutesy face. And then she just, oh my God, the stuff she does with light tubes and barbed wire and chairs and all this stuff. It really makes you cringe like, holy crap, what the hell is going on here, you know? And so it's really, really awesome to see that she helps put it on the map as well as a bunch of other great female wrestlers over in Japan for sure. She helped put on the map that women's wrestling isn't just about, you know, the wrestlocks and stuff like that and imitating the wrestling that a lot of the guys do. She proved that women can get out there and get just as hardcore and extreme as the men do. And I have to tip my hat to her for sure. And I think to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I definitely want to go to my future innovators, or not necessarily future innovators, but kind of women I consider to be modern innovators. And these are women who captured the imagination and just fascination with the fans, and just they sell tickets based on their name alone, you know what I mean? And again, this one's gonna the first pick is gonna be a little biased, and it's because I'm a really huge fan of hers. But Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, is, oh my God, she's amazing. And the fact that she's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just makes it even better. Go Steelers. Anyway, I love watching Britt Baker. Her matches is just, it's great because of the swag she has, and just like, it almost seems like she has a very blasé attitude towards her opponent, not necessarily the wrestling in general, but just towards her opponent. Like, I know that I'm better than you. I know that I'm going to outclass you. I know that I'm going to out wrestle you. And you are about to be staring at the lights for at least 3 seconds. And yeah, she definitely delivers on that. She really does. Really, really brings the energy, brings the crowd up a lot too. Because the only time I've seen that many terrible towels in an arena is when Pittsburgh is playing. Otherwise, when Britt Baker hits the, you know, when her music hits the Titantron and she's walking out, you see yellow flags all over the place just twirling, you know what I'm saying? Like a helicopter. So dope. And a good tag team, I think, is the that Inspiration, I believe is what their name is, or the Illspiration, I'm not sure. Either way, I like those two's work. I like the way they gel with each other. They seem to really have a good chemistry with one another, which really translates good into their matches. They have really good matches with almost any opponent. I can't even think of one match of theirs that I've seen that I wasn't impressed by. Honestly, they've they've really done a lot and really come a long way, because when they first started as a team, they were good, but now they've gotten to a point where I feel like they're great, and that's not something that's easy to do for a pro wrestler, considering how many wrestlers there are and how it's so difficult to be original and carve out your own market or your own niche market in a basically a market that's already being overflooded with the talent and people trying to cash in on pro wrestling, so they're making their own promotions, and people, you know, old wrestlers are retiring, so they're opening up their own schools and things. It's just, it's getting to be an oversaturated market. So to see especially a tag team start to reach what I consider to be great status, like a lot of the other tag teams in pro wrestling, like the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, the Legion of Doom, or the Road Warriors. People like those teams that have established themselves as great teams, I feel like the Inspiration are coming very close to that, and definitely would be a mistake on my part to go without mentioning the great Asuka. That woman, her stage presence alone should put her up here, but just another complete package wrestler. I mean, she's got it all, from the look to the charisma to the mic skills to the in-ring work to just, she's great. I love Asuka. She's awesome. And Asuka, definitely definitely underrated in my opinion. She very underutilized too. I feel like she should be way more, she should be pushed way more than she is, because I feel that WWE are really dropping the ball with her and a couple of other great wrestlers that they have, such as that JCJ or whatever her name is, JC Jane, I believe. She's another good one. She definitely gets the crowd going. She, if anybody's watched them, she definitely gets Booker T going. If you know what I mean, it's really awesome to just to see people have that kind of response to wrestling and wrestlers in general, and then the companies for whatever reason just don't capitalize on that success and don't see it for what it is, don't see that, hey, the people are really interested in this person, maybe we should try to give them a bigger platform, or just start using them, utilizing them more, and kind of putting them out there in front of the fans and getting the fans a little more used to them, letting them develop their character, or just evolve as people in general, and see where that takes us. No, WWE isn't interested in that. They're interested in creating their own buzz their way. And sorry, I don't mean to rag on WWE again. It's just kind of hard not to. but but yeah, that a little bit of favoritism, a little bit of biasness for those lists. But if anybody's feeling like they have really strong opinions one way or the other about my lists, I should say, please leave any comments down, in the comments section or whatever. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. We'll see what's up. Hell, if your opinions and whatnot are warranted enough, I might even have you on a future episode, and we'll chop it up. We'll debate back and forth. We'll talk back and forth about our opinions and stuff. We'll just see how that goes, because that sounds like fun to me. It really does. I don't have a lot of people to talk wrestling with. So having someone to sit and talk to wrestling, not just listen to me talking about wrestling, would be a treat. It would definitely be something that I'm interested in. And a lot of professional wrestlers have come into the public eye because of their outstanding performances, or their outstanding character work, or their this or that or what have you. And to name every single one of them would be an impossibility. I mean, quite literally, it would take more hours than I'm sure anyone would be willing to listen to this podcast, even a hardcore pro wrestling fan. So it's impossible for me to sit here and name every single one of them, as well as give a brief little summary as to why I feel they belong there, and as to why they've proven that they belong there. So please, anybody who takes offense at my list or whatever, don't bother. I mean, it's the opinions of one dude. What My opinions don't mean anything except to me. So I don't know. I really feel like a lot of those people that I mentioned deserve to get a lot more recognition and idolization than what they get, because a lot of them are just throwaway names to some people, and to a lot of people, they aren't even names that they recognize. And that's a shame to me, because wrestling has done so much in the 60, 70 plus years it's been around, and for people to just up and ignore and forget about these people that have dedicated so much of their blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice being around their families, and just put themselves constantly in the public eye of like, yeah, I'm a famous pro wrestler or whatever, but I still got to go from this town to this town so I can go to the next match. And hey, I got to eat too, so I'm going to stop and get some food at this gas station or this restaurant or this fast food joint. Do you know how many times they must be flocked and pestered for autographs and nowadays pictures and stuff, and just, hey, I saw you back in blah blah blah, and this was blah, blah, blah. Do you know how many times they've had to hear stories that they really don't care about? They're just wanting to get their food, or they're just wanting to get on the road, or they're just wanting to get, do this or do that, or just wanting some 5 minutes alone to just have some peace, peace and quiet. I I have to admit, I really do idolize professional wrestlers, but I don't envy a lot of what they had to do and what they have to do in order to be professional wrestlers, because I don't know if anyone else knows this, but you don't just go to wrestling training and then the next day you're friggin' Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage or Ric Flair. It takes months and weeks and months and months and years and decades and blah blah. Some people have been in wrestling for over 20, 30 years, and still you'll never know their name. But in certain areas, they may be more popular than the Beatles. I'm telling, you know? So it's just interesting to me to see how, not necessarily how short the public attention span is, but just how these people who have sacrificed so much for everyone else has basically gotten not even a thank you in return. And these people, almost everyone I've mentioned, except for like a lot of the modern day ones, a lot of them are not with us anymore. They've passed, and again, to do so much and leave a huge legacy behind just for people to be like, who? Who's that? Like Haystacks Calhoun. I'm sure a lot of pro wrestling fans know who that is, but a lot of you don't. And that's a shame. It's a crying shame that. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little worked up here. It's just. It's disheartening. It really is. It breaks my heart. Because there are so many great wrestlers and just great, talented individuals, not just in the ring, but behind the scenes, working on production, helping wrestlers develop their characters, helping wrestlers to work out, helping wrestlers get their schedules fixed so they know what town they're going to next or know where the next match is, and just getting their travel taken care of in general, like flying to and from a place, and just all this stuff that they sacrificed and all this stuff that they did just to make us cheer or boo, and nobody gives a crap about them now. That's shameful, and it really makes me sad. Like I said before, it just breaks my heart. And I know at this point I'm just kind of rambling a little bit, but I mean, seriously, how can any of the people that I named not deserve to be on the list that I put them on? Because they have dedicated so much to pro wrestling, and they've done such an amazing job at dedicating their lives to wrestling that nowadays you can't mention professional wrestling without somebody knowing what you're talking about. They may not know any of the wrestlers, they may not know any of the matches, any of the companies, any of that stuff, but they at least know what pro wrestling is. They have an idea, they have an understanding, they kind of get it. Maybe not everything, but they kind of get the gist of it, you know what I mean? And it's because of all these great legends, both male and female, that helped to propel professional wrestling into not just the public eye, but into heights it has never seen before and probably never will again, unfortunately, because who knows what will happen in the next 20, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. I'm not a fortune teller, so I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I can tell you this. If I'm alive, I'll still be watching it. Hopefully my children or grandchildren or anything like that will be as well, because, carry on the family tradition, right? Even if it is something as lame as pro wrestling. And I only say lame because every person I mention it to that isn't a pro wrestling fan, their response is, oh, you still believe in wrestling? That's lame. And it's like, come on now. It kind of makes me want to grab a chair and smack them over the head and be like, there, is that stupid? Is that lame? Is that dumb? But I don't know. Sometimes I'm a little aggro. But sometimes people deserve it. I mean, nowadays people are so stupid. Ridiculous. But yeah, honestly, thinking on it before I wrap this up, I kind of want to mention a couple of not necessarily tag teams, but kind of stables in wrestling that I really think help to propel the idea of like we should build bigger teams of wrestling. And I mentioned the Four Horsemen and the Fabulous Freebirds earlier, but I would be, I would be out of line if I didn't mention at least a few more before they got overinflated and just started getting, well, not overinflated, before they got bloated and started to kind of go downhill. The NWO storyline, the NWO stable was an amazing stable, and one that I personally feel definitely belongs in a top tier stable category. Alongside them, I feel is D-Generation X, not just the one from the Attitude Era, but the one with Mr. The one with Rick Rude, Shawn Michaels, China, and Triple H, the original incarnation, all the way up to the DX 2000, when they came out to Run DMC's Kings of Rock. I actually like that song, but anyway. Uh, Another couple of stables I feel deserve mentioning is, of course, Bullet Club from Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling to be more specific. They were a great stable that really changed the landscape of gaijin wrestlers in Japan and really helped to kind of put their own little spin on stable wrestling or stables in general in wrestling, especially in Japan. Uh, Another stable or two that I feel kind of deserves mentioning, even though they weren't as popular, they really helped to catapult The Rock to a more main event status, and it's a little underutilized, but I feel that the Nation of Domination was a good stable. It had D'Lo, Mark Henry, Farouk, The Rock. I mean, it just those four names right there, all of them amazingly talented men, unbelievable. Um, of course, I mentioned them in TNA, but I got to mention the Beautiful People, even though they were a tag team originally. They did eventually add like two or three more members later on, so it became more of a stable. But later on, but yeah, I really enjoyed the Beautiful People. They were they were pretty fun to watch. Just the whole shenanigans, and then after the matches when they put the brown paper bags over their opponents' heads and stuff, and it was just really funny. Some of the skits. And one of my favorite stables of all time, of course, is a little known WCW stable that was highly underutilized and essentially just buried, in my opinion, was Raven's Flock. That was a stable that definitely did a lot to introduce a lot of the more, not necessarily key wrestlers, but just individuals who would go on to make big strides in wrestling. Like to the WCW audience, Perry Saturn got exposed to him. Raven used to work in WCW, so people kind of were familiar with Scotty Levy. I don't know if they were too familiar with the Raven character because he was an ECW creation. But anyway, Billy Kidman was also helped to at least put in people's eye and get an idea for a general consensus of like, oh, okay, this is who this guy is. This is what he can do. And he went on to have amazing success, starting with Rey Mysterio and I think Conan as well as the Filthy Animals in WCW. And yeah, those are just some of the stables, in my opinion, that kind of jump to my mind when I think about prolific pro wrestling stables. I definitely think of those. You know what I mean? I could name a few more, but they're a lot more modern, and I don't feel that they've started to reach the same amount of momentum that the stables I just mentioned, like the Bullet Club and the NWO and DX and blah blah blah. I don't feel that the ones that I could mention modern day have reached the momentum gaining that the ones I've mentioned previously have. And I know Bullet Club is a bit of a modern stable, but they've had iterations for since what, like 2012, 2013, maybe even a little sooner, a little later. I'm not sure. Um, they were really helpful in showing the audiences what stable wrestling could do, because in a lot of stables in wrestling you'll have like the usual tactics of like distracting the referee, or like one the guy in the ring will distract the referee and the guy in your stable will run up and attack your opponent, or blah blah blah. Simple stuff like that that's been done almost to death in pro wrestling. But the Bullet Club would try to always use creative ideas and creative ways to essentially do the same thing, but just add a little flair to it, or just keep the audience kind of a little mystified and kind of guessing a little bit as to exactly what's going to happen next. And if you can cause the audience as a whole to suspend their disbelief for even just a brief moment, that's what pro wrestling is all about. That moment of everybody being like, "Oh, what the fuck? Excuse my language. Oh, what did I just see? This is unbelievable." You know what I mean? So that definitely helps to propel professional wrestling people that are able to captivate audiences like that. And again, it's not just like stables and tag teams that can do that. You had wrestlers like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and stuff who could just, on their sheer presence alone in the ring, whether they were cutting a promo or wrestling somebody or just standing there, the audiences were losing their minds. They were just, they couldn't believe it. They're like, oh my God, Steve Austin is here. That's The Rock. That's Mick freaking Foley. That's The Undertaker. What the hell? Triple H. Oh my God. Just people would lose it. And yes, I remember the Attitude Era very well, and people were going way more bananas than what I'm explaining. I mean, I don't think I can accurately put it into words just how over the moon people were with what they were seeing. It's really interesting to see that people can react that hardcore to just seeing somebody. It kind of makes me feel, when I was a kid, it always made me want to have like entrance music when I walked into a room, just so I could have that reaction of like people know that I'm coming in, and as soon as I walk in, they're like, "Oh, it's Dusty," that would be pretty legit. So I kind of have to be honest about that. It's something I aspire, but you know, I did try pro wrestling for a little bit, and unfortunately that didn't work out. And but I guess I can go into that another time or whatever. But yeah, I've just, like I said, I've been a huge fan of wrestling my whole life, and so, but if you've all listened to me ramble this long, then congratulations for sticking around to the end of the podcast, and I thank you very much. If y'all could please just leave a comment, maybe subscribe, like, just anything you can, share the video, anything you can to help me get the views up, get the word out. Just, if you're enjoying this podcast, please, share it around. Like I said, even if you're not a fan of this podcast, share it around. Maybe just torture somebody you don't like, make them listen to pro wrestling. But yeah, I think since this episode has already gone a little long, probably gonna cut it here. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in with me, and come back next week for another great episode of The Jar. This is Dusty the SaY-DiST, and I'll talk to you later.